A very good morning to all of you, my dear students. So our pharmacology department has newly started up the online teaching sessions for all of you. So you might have already received a few sessions from our HOD and the faculty also. So today I'm going to discuss something about the chemotherapy of leprosy. So because nowadays we are going to come up with the integrated teaching pattern. So I'm going to discuss about the leprosy disease as such in toto, covering pharmacotherapy of leprosy a little bit in detail. So let us start the session now. So chemotherapy of leprosy. So now I'm going to cover this topic under the following subheadings. That is introduction, types of leprosy, diagnosis of leprosy, anti-leprotic drugs, multi-drug therapy, novel drugs, leprosy in pregnancy as well as in children, and then immunoprophylaxis. So let us start with the introduction now. So you all must be aware of that leprosy is caused by an acid-fast rod-shaped bacillus known as Mycobacterium leprae. So you can see here the rod-shaped Mycobacterium leprae bacillus. And it was discovered by a scientist known as Gerhard Amor Hansen in 1873. So because of which it is named after his name, that is Hansen's disease. So if you look into this picture, these are the animals, various animals that harbor Mycobacterium leprae. There is like 9-banded armadillo, some types of monkeys, rabbits, mice, etc. So why do we need to know about these animals in pharmacology? It's a very important point to remember. So the bacilli can be cultivated successfully in foot pad of mice. That is one thing. And they can successfully get transmitted to some species of armadillos so that they can become a good experimental animals for further evaluation of anti-leprotic drugs. The footpads of mice and also the armadillos. This is a pharmacological importance. Then coming to the prevalence, actually this because of this World Health Organization in the process of eradicating the leprosy as a disease as such throughout the world globally. So they have introduced supplying the multi-drug therapy regimens, the drugs which contain like that rifampicin, clofazimine, dapsone, etc., free of cost to every patient. Under surveillance, they used to uh, supply those drugs. So because of that, from 1985 onwards, there is a drastic reduction in the prevalence of leprosy. But as on 31st March, 0.67 per 10,000 population cases were reported. That means by 2018, as per the statistical data, 60% of new cases which were occurring globally each year are from India. That means leprosy is not still eradicated from our country. So that's why we need to know something about this disease in detail. So here you can see in this graph from 1985 onwards, there is a drastic reduction in the cases of prevalence of the cases of leprosy. Then 27th January, it is designated as World Leprosy Day. Then coming to the leprosy disease proper, it is a chronic granulomatous infectious disease caused by Mycobacterium leprae. So in good olden days, it used to be named as Kushtaroga. This you must all be aware of. Kushtaroga means it is nothing but leprosy disease. And if you go back to the Greek dictionary, the word leper comes from the Greek word which means the scaling. So there is scaling of the lesions that you can come across in these patients. And it is also referred to as Hansen's disease because it is named after the scientist who has discovered the bacillus. Then chalmogra oil is one oil which was used before the development of multi-drug therapy to treat the lepra cases and also some of the skin infections caused by other bacteria. Then, apart from that, it is the oldest known disease even before the other bacterial diseases. It was the first bacterium to be identified as causing disease in humans. That is historical importance. And the treatment for this disease appeared in 1940s, and it affects both ages and all ages and both sex, that is adults as well as males, attributed to poor hygiene and unsanitary conditions, and endemic in tropical countries with hot and moist climate. And apart from the manifestations that the disease itself gives to the patient, there is another thing that we have to focus upon being doctors, that is the social discrimination of the patient from the society. So whenever you get such a case, leprosy case as such in future, you have to remember this point and treat the patient totally, considering the counseling part to the patient, giving them encouragement that he can become normal if he goes through the multi-drug therapy. You can show the pictures even that how fast he can become normal if he takes the multi-drug therapy without any interruption. That much confidence being doctors we have to give to the patients, not only just prescription of the drugs being pharmacologists. Then how it gets spread. So leprosy is an airborne disease. So it spreads through the droplets that are discharged from the respiratory tract from the patient who is suffering from the leprosy disease already, and then from the nasal secretions. That is like in nasal secretions, the bacilli stays alive for 9 days, whereas in soil or fomites, it stays alive for 46 days. So apart from the nasal secretions and droplet discharge, there is a transmission by mucous membranes of mouth, contact with the skin lesions, and there is a possibility of vertical transmission from the mother to the baby in utero, and also after delivery, transmission of the disease from the mother to the child also through breast milk. Then we all know that it is an obligate intracellular acid-fast bacillus, and it survives within, it attacks the macrophages and Schwann cells, enters into the cells, and then survives within these cells. And there are persisters which completely stay there inside the cells and which are not completely getting killed away with any anti-leprotic drugs, because of which we do come across the relapses. Then Hansen's disease that we have already discussed about it. And apart from that, even though it was the first bacterial disease that was caused in humans, so it was discovered long ago, there is a very slow progression in chemotherapy. Because the reasons are many, because the bacillus multiplies very slowly. And another thing is that incubation period is 2 to 40 years. On an average, it is approximately 3 to 5 years. These are the two cardinal points that you have to keep in mind why there is slow progression in chemotherapy. That is discovering your anti-leprotic drugs. Then, what are the systems that get involved when a patient gets affected with leprosy? Let us see. So it involves the skin, peripheral nerves, and mucous membranes. Apart from that, that means skin and peripheral nerves means it is mainly affecting the cooler parts of the body. And apart from that, what are the other organs that are getting affected with leprosy disease? That is mucosa of mouth, upper respiratory tract, eyes, muscles, bones, testes. And the only organs that are spared from leprosy are CNS, ovary, and lungs. And the only areas that are spared from leprosy are axilla, groin, skull, midline of the back, which are considered to be hot areas of the body. So in this picture, you can see that skin and peripheral nerves being cooler parts of the body are the preliminary areas where the leprosy gets entrance into. Then, if you come across a case, how the leprosy case represents itself. So we can see leprosy patches on the skin of the body of the patient. How do these patches look like? They are either pale or reddish, or copper colored, and they could be flat or even raised, but there is no itching, but there is a possibility of loss of sensation to heat, touch, or pain. These are the prominent features of those kinds of leprosy patches. So you can see here in this picture, so this is like pale, this is like a reddish patch, and this is like copper colored patch. Then sometimes because of the sensory loss in these areas of patches, so the patient is not aware of the sensations in that particular areas. Because of that, there is a possibility of injuries or burns, which may further lead to secondary infections and sometimes even severe deformities also. So you can see here the secondary infections of the various areas where the patient got affected with lesions already. And here in this picture, you can see the severe deformities caused by the leprosy. Then here in this picture, you can see peripheral nerve thickening. See, here, here, nerve thickening in the leprosy. Then there is a possibility of neurological deficit that can give rise to either claw hands, wrist drop, or foot drops, or such kind of things. Then coming to the types of leprosy. So leprosy as such, it is classified under various categories that we'll come across now. So there are various classifications of leprosy. So one is Madrid classification and Indian classification, Ridley-Joplin classification, and World Health Organization classification, another one. Madrid, Indian, and World Health Organization classifications are based upon the clinico-bacteriological picture, whereas the Ridley-Joplin classification is mainly based on the immunohistological picture of the disease. So let us see what are these classifications, how they have classified the leprosy into various subtypes. Madrid classification consists of 4 varieties, wherein the disease consists of indeterminate type, tuberculoid type, borderline type, and lepromatous type. Whereas Indian classification consists of all these 4 varieties which the Madrid classification detailed out. Apart from that, another new entry here is the purely neuritic type. Okay. Then Ridley-Joplin classification and World Health Organization classification. So Ridley-Joplin classification means it consists of 5 subtypes, that is like tuberculoid leprosy and lepromatous leprosy, and in between the borderline leprosy. And between the borderline leprosy and tuberculoid leprosy, you can see borderline tuberculoid leprosy. It is a variant in between these 2 variants. And then borderline lepromatous leprosy is a variant which lies between the borderline leprosy and lepromatous leprosy. So these are the 5 varieties. Whereas World Health Organization classified the leprosy broadly into only 2 varieties, that is paucibacillary leprosy and multibacillary leprosy. Pauci means very few. So the leprosy disease consists of like here only we can see up to 5 skin lesions in these patients. Whereas multibacillary leprosy, we can see 6 or more than 6 skin lesions. Then paucibacillary leprosy means it is like lepermin test can be negative on all sides. Whereas multibacillary leprosy, it is positive lepermin test. You can see here. Apart from that, no nerve or only one nerve involvement in paucibacillary leprosy. Whereas in multibacillary leprosy, there is more than one nerve is getting involved, neuronal involvement. So this is another classification along with like World Health Organization classification and the National Leprosy Eradication Program classification of leprosy. Both are similar only. And we do follow this classification of leprosy based on which we diagnose the case and based on which we do treat the cases also. So here, if you look into this picture, here we have 3 varieties like tuberculoid, borderline, and lepromatous. So these are the 2 extremities like lepromatous leprosy, tuberculoid leprosy. Then here in between lies borderline leprosy. So here lepromatous leprosy means the patient's cellular mediated immunity will be very low. Whereas here tuberculoid variety, it will be very high, very good. So because of low level of immunity, the patient will get affected with many number of organisms, and the patient will be most infectious or contagious, and the lesions will be too many in number. Contrast to that, tuberculoid leprosy, CMI is very good, because of which organisms very hard to find, and then it is non-infectious or non-contagious, and the lesions, if at all develop, there will be very less in number and localized also. It is not disseminated. And in between these two categories, borderline leprosy lies in. And this borderline leprosy, here CMI will be intermediate, cellular mediated immunity. So because of which only some organisms may get entry into the body of the patient, and slightly infectious and scattered lesions we can come across in the body of the patient. So here borderline leprosy, if it is not treated on time, it may get converted to either borderline lepromatous leprosy or borderline tuberculoid leprosy. Hope this is clear for you. Then, if you look into the main clinical picture and its difference between the tuberculoid leprosy and lepromatous leprosy, tuberculoid leprosy means because of CMI being intact, it is very good. It is a less severe form of leprosy, whereas the lepromatous leprosy, where CMI is very poor, it can be considered as more severe form of the disease with widespread skin lesions and rashes and numbness and muscle weakness. Whereas in tuberculoid leprosy, because of CMI being intact, we can see only one or few patches of flat, pale colored skin, quasi-bacillary leprosy, that is otherwise known as. Very few lesions you can come across. But the affected areas of skin may feel numb here. Whereas in lepromatous leprosy, apart from the skin lesions, you can come across mainly nose, kidneys, and male reproductive organs getting involved. And regarding the infectivity, we have already discussed that tuberculoid leprosy is less contagious, whereas lepromatous leprosy is more contagious, and borderline leprosy lies in between these two categories. Apart from these lesions and the areas of involvement, if we look into these two types of varieties of patients, so in tuberculoid leprosy, there is a minimal disfigurement, whereas this disfigurement is very high in case of lepromatous leprosy. So here in tuberculoid variety, you don't see any leonine faces, no claw hands, no foot drops, and no hand drops, all these things. You don't come across this. And apart from that, there is no pendulous earlobes also, because there is good immune response. Whereas because of the low immune response in case of lepromatous leprosy, you can come across leonine faces, total disfigurement of the face, and then you can see even claw hands, saddle nose, the cartilage of the nose being eaten away by the disease, and claw hands, etc., etc. So this is another flow chart that where you can come across this because of the exposure. Poor CMI, lepromatous leprosy, high CMI, spontaneous resolution it can be, and if it is fairly high CMI, tuberculoid leprosy, and in between lies indeterminate variety of leprosy, which we have already discussed under the Indian classification. Okay. Then borderline disease means which lies between tuberculoid and lepromatous, so it can get converted to borderline tuberculoid or borderline leprosy depending on the situation if it is not treated on time. Then we'll come across lepromatous leprosy. We'll know something about this. So we have discussed already the CMI is low, negative lepromin test, because there is no CMI. So then apart from that, rapid progression of disease and number of lesions are more. So that is like a macules, hypopigmented, circular erythematous patches with no itching or hypoalgesia. And apart from that, face, nose, ears, eyes, and lymph nodes will be getting affected. And later on, lastly, nerves also will get affected. And skin is furrowed here, nodulated with leonine faces appearance, wherein you can see in the patient's face the eyelashes getting fallen off, and ulceration of the face, entire lesions getting ulcerated with marked tissue restriction involving eyes, nose, and larynx, where the nasal bone will be depressed, deformed, and then nasal bone cartilage will be eaten away, And eye picture also I'll be showing you in subsequent slides. It will be resulting in cataract, blindness, and various other things also. So lepromatous leprosy, if you look upon, these are the hypopigmented patches, how they look like. Then lepra nodules, you can see the nodule kind of things on the earlobe. Okay. Then other features, eyes, that's what we just discussed about. So that is blindness. It may cause blindness, giving rise to, because of maybe cataract. Then damage to the seventh cranial nerve, that is facial nerve, may make the eyelid closure impaired. Because of that, there is a possibility of trauma to the eyeball, feasibility and possibility both. Then there is a damage to the fifth cranial nerve, that is trigeminal nerve, because of which there is a possibility of anesthesia of the cornea and conjunctiva. So even if there is an injury, the patient will not be able to know because of the anesthesia of the both cornea and conjunctiva. And cornea is because of that susceptible to trauma and even ulceration too. So that may also give rise to blindness, not only because of cataract. Then nose nasal collapse due to bony restriction, and apart from that we can see even hypogonadism from testicular atrophy. Here you can see cataract formation. Sometimes even ulcers can be formed. This is leonine faces typical picture where you can see eyelashes fallen off, and then this eyeballs are open, not able to close the eyelids, and then this depression of the nasal bone and the cartilage of the nasal bone is being eaten away. So this is typical leonine faces appearance. Then disfigurements of hands in leprosy because the bones are getting eaten away. Then tuberculoid leprosy, another major variety. So here the CMI is intact, because of which lepramin test will become positive, and there will be slow progression of the disease. And here the main important thing is that nerves are predominantly getting affected in this tuberculoid leprosy. Apart from that, you can see large, flat, atrophic, hairless, hypopigmented skin areas, the raised red margin. Patches will be there, but around the patch there will be raised red margins, which is associated with impairment of sensation most commonly. Along with that, you can see peripheral nerve thickening also, because nerves are predominated areas that are getting affected first. Then this type of leprosy has better prognosis because CMI is intact. So here you can see, when compared to the lepromatous leprosy, tuberculoid leprosy is having the patches are same, but here the only difference is the raised red margins. Here you can see. Here also raised red margins of the patches, tuberculoid leprosy disease. Then other types of leprosy are indeterminate leprosy. What does it mean? Indeterminate leprosy means earliest and transitory stage. So lesions are, it is just indeterminate. Lesions are very minimal with no clue. Will be unable to diagnose even the case. And there could be spontaneous regression of the case, or else there may be progression to tuberculoid leprosy or borderline leprosy or lepromatous leprosy. This is just indeterminate. There is no proper picture of this disease. Then borderline leprosy. It is very unstable disease with low immunity. So it can jump either into lepromatous leprosy or tuberculoid leprosy. Mostly if it is untreated, it can jump into lepromatous leprosy. So now, till now, we have discussed something about the various types of leprosy. So when a patient comes to you, you have to diagnose which type of leprosy it is. Whether it is tuberculoid leprosy or lepromatous leprosy or paucibacillary leprosy or multibacillary leprosy. So then only we can think about which regimen that we have to give to the patient. Okay. Then coming to the diagnosis of leprosy. So we'll just discuss very few points here. The diagnosis of leprosy is mainly of various types. That is like number one, clinical diagnosis. that can be based on signs and symptoms of the disease. And then bacteriological evidence, which is done by using Ziehl-Neelsen stain technique. And the smears are to be taken from the lesions, skin lesions, nodules, lesions from nodules, lesions from earlobes, and the nasal smears, scrapings of nasal mucosa can be taken off. And then even the nerve biopsy also can be used here for the staining technique. And apart from that, we have another thing, that is that methacholine sweat test and even lepramin test. But this lepramin test, it is of doubtful diagnostic value. It is not the specific thing. Then we'll see. In a nutshell, we'll just have a recap of these tests. Leprosy skin test. So what do we do here is inactive leprosy causing bacteria are injected into the skin. So as soon as we inject, the body will react to the leprosy antigens that enter into the body. Then you have to read the report. First, initially after 3 days and later on after 28 days. So normal result means no irritation at the injection site. And if at all the positive skin reaction is seen, then it can be considered as tuberculoid leprosy. Then shave biopsy. It is least invasive because from this area, if this part is getting affected, so superficial layers of the skin or superficial layers of lesion of the skin are scraped off. So because of which there is no stitches needed, and then smear study can be done. Then punch biopsy. So here you can see the small cylinder of skin can be removed. Here one size and here another size. And the size of the lesion, how much you are removing, is dependent upon the size of lesion that the patient is having. So it may require stitches. Then excisional biopsy. So after the introduction of the local anesthetic, entire lesion is removed as such, because of this stitches may be needed for this biopsy. Then methacholine sweat test. What is it? So here we inject methacholine intradermally into the body of the patient. Suppose if there is presence of sweating after the methacholine injection, then the patient it is no more a patient, it is a normal person. But if there is an absence of sweating, then we have to consider that it is leprosy case. Why do you want to go for this methacholine sweat test when we have all this skin smears and all this various of smear studies from various lesions? Because whenever a patient comes to you with a dark skin or very few lesions, where you find difficulty in diagnosing the case, whether it is leprosy or not, if at all, what type of leprosy? First of all, we have to diagnose whether it is leprosy or not. So in such cases, we can go for this methacholine sweat test. Then another lepramin test, which is of not that much diagnostic of. Then what do we do here? 0.1 ml of lepramin is injected intradermally. Then the reaction is observed initially after 24 to 48 hours and later on after 3 to 5 weeks at the site of the injection. So if erythema and induration of 10 to 30 millimeters in diameter appears in the initial phase, that can be referred to as early or Fernandez reaction. If the erythematous nodular lesion of 3 to 5 millimeters diameter develops at 3 to 5 weeks time, then it can be referred to as delayed reaction or Mitsuda reaction. So this is about the various diagnostic tests of leprosy. Then we discussed in the beginning, in the introduction, that is Chalmogra oil can be used in the management of leprosy before the anti-leprotic drugs discovery. What is this? This is like pre-modern treatment of leprosy, a kind of, we can say, Ayurvedic therapy that was used in the management of leprosy, because it is the skin is getting affected, and not only for the treatment of leprosy, it was used various other skin infections also in India. And it was also used in China and Burma, and introduced to the West by Frederick John, who was a professor at Bengal Medical College. So he used this Chalmogra oil both orally as well as a topical agent on the skin lesions of the leprosy. And he could see significant improvement in the year 1854. Okay, this is before the discovery of the anti-leprotic drugs. Now, nowhere we are not using that therapy. Then coming to the anti-leprotic drugs. So these anti-leprotic drugs are classified into various types. Number one is sulfone groups of drugs, which includes dapsone, then phenazine derivatives, clofazimine, then antitubercular drugs like rifampicin and ethionamide, and other antibiotics like ofloxacin, moxifloxacin, minoxidil, and clarithromycin. So now we'll discuss each and every drug in detail, and then we'll go to the actual pharmacotherapy of leprosy, like managing the various types of leprosy. How do we manage? Like how do we manage paucibacillary leprosy? How do we manage multibacillary leprosy? And then leprosy management in case of pregnant ladies and children, and then immunoprophylaxis. All this we are going to discuss. So please pay attention so that I'll be giving few questionnaire at the end of the session. So without going back to the YouTube video and without going back to the slides, if you can answer those questions, then you have understood the topic very well. If you find any difficulty in answering those questions, you can, anytime you can approach me on phone. Okay. Then coming to the anti-leprotic drugs one by one, dapsone. It is chemically diamino diphenol sulfone, DDS. That means it belongs to the group of sulfur drugs. So whatever the ADR that we come across with dapsone is similar to that of sulfur drugs. So this dapsone was the simplest, oldest, cheapest, most active and most commonly used drugs. Until then, they have discovered other groups of drugs, which we have listed just now in the previous slide. So because this dapsone belongs to the sulfone group of drugs, it is structurally related to sulfonamides, and it does have its own toxicity. But still, we do use this dapsone in the pharmacotherapy of leprosy. Why? Because in leprosy management, we use very minimal dose. So that least dose, that whatever we are using in leprosy, it will not produce much of toxicity. That is one advantage with that. Then coming to the dapsone, it is bacteriostatic at low concentration. Apart from that, it has antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and immunosuppressive properties also. How does it act? Like that of the other sulfur drugs. Mechanism of action of dapsone is inhibition of incorporation of para-aminobenzoic acid into folic acid, and thus inhibits the synthesis of bacterial dihydrofolic acid and tetrahydrofolic acid, which are useful for the formation of nucleic acids. So here you can see in this picture, para-aminobenzoic acid is not getting incorporated because dihydroteroate synthetase is being blocked by the administration of dapsone. So there is no formation of dihydroteroic acid, no formation of dihydrofolic acid, no formation of tetrahydrofolic acid. And thus inhibition of synthesis of thymidine, purines, and then DNA, everything, all these steps will get blocked. It is similar to that of the mechanism of action of sulfamethoxazole. And here, if we use trimethoprim, this step will be getting blocked. Okay. Then pharmacokinetics. Coming to the pharmacokinetics of dapsone, it is absorbed well on oral administration with 70% plasma protein binding and metabolized through deacetylation process in the liver. And there is another thing, that is it also goes through enterohepatic circulation, because of which the drug is seen in the body up to 3 weeks even after the discontinuation of the drug. That is the main point that we have to remember. Then through deacetylation process, whatever the products are released of the metabolism, they get conjugated, and then these conjugated products are excreted through bile and urine. You can see that in this diagram, dapsone, through acetylation process and N-hydroxylation process. This is non-toxic products like acetyl dapsone is released, and toxic products like hydroxyl amines are released. Both of them get conjugated, and then the conjugated products are getting excreted through urine here. Then resistance with the dapsone. Good olden days, when dapsone was the only molecule that was used in the management of leprosy, they could even come across dapsone resistance with the monotherapy with the dapsone. So why it is so? What is the, we'll just know something about the dapsone resistance. So primary resistance with dapsone. That means infection was contacted from a patient harboring resistant bacilli. Even though this patient is on dapsone, other patient is suffering from leprosy who has resistant bacilli, resistant variety. So that is primary resistance. He came in contact with that particular patient. Then secondary resistance is resistance which develops during monotherapy in an individual patient with dapsone. After the treatment of dapsone, there is secondary resistance. Then what is persisters? Drug sensitive bacilli which become dormant, hide in some tissues and are not affected by any drug. We can't attack that because they're intracellular, locked up within the tissues. They may stage a comeback after the drug is withdrawn. So there is a possibility of relapses in such cases. That's why we are not able to completely eliminate the leprosy. This is proper. Okay. Then adverse drug reactions. So generally we come across like the drugs, gastric intolerance like nausea and vomiting. Apart from that, you need to remember about the specific adverse drug reactions which come across with each and every anti-leprotic drug. So here we can see Stevens-Johnson syndrome, that is the hypersensitivity reaction, which can manifest as allergic rash, fixed drug eruptions, drug fever, jaundice, eosinophilia, etc. And this is most commonly seen within first 6 weeks of therapy itself. And you have to treat in such case by using prednisolone 40 to 60 milligrams per day to counteract this hypersensitivity manifestations. And apart from that, hypermelanosis, headache, paresthesia, phototoxicity, and even hepatitis can be seen in the patient. And mild hemolytic anemia, which is very mild, can be seen, which can be nullified by the administration of antioxidants like vitamin C or vitamin E. And then we can come across also like hemoglobinemia and agranulocytosis. Then, so we have discussed till now the entire pharmacology of dapsone. Now we'll see what are the lepra reactions. Whenever you keep the patient on dapsone, you will be coming across lepra reactions. What is it exactly? What is it due to? Let us see. So lepra reactions comprise several common immunologically inflammatory states that can cause considerable morbidity. Sometimes they are lethal, especially in case of type 2 lepra reactions. It may lead to even the death of the patient if it is not paid attention. Otherwise, it is immunological or inflammatory reaction. Some of these reactions precede diagnosis and institution of effective antimicrobial therapy. Other reactions occur after the initiation of appropriate chemotherapy. When we discuss about the differences between type 1 lepra reactions and type 2 lepra reactions, we'll come to know which is starting before the commencement of therapy and which is starting after commencement of therapy. Then these sort of acute exacerbations that occur during the course of leprosy are called lepra reactions. But they're not only seen with the dapsone therapy, they also can be seen with anxiety or even precipitated by anxiety, malaria, acute infections, and also during treatment with other sulfone type of drugs, which the patient is upon. Okay. So what are the various types of lepra reactions? It is type 1 and type 2. Let us see what are they. Type 1 lepra reaction is otherwise known as downgrading and reversal reaction, whereas type 2 lepra reaction is known as erythema nodosum leprosum, ENL. So type 1 lepra reaction here, the clinical picture will be like this. It is a kind of reversal type. It is not that lethal like that of type 2 reaction. And it is a kind of delayed type 4 hypersensitivity manifestation. And most commonly seen in tuberculoid leprosy and borderline lepromatous leprosy patients because of enhanced host immunity. Type of hypersensitivity manifestation that is delayed type 4 variety. and it occurs even after completion of the treatment also. So how the patient manifests with various signs and symptoms? That is, he presents with fever, cutaneous ulceration, neuritis with swollen and painful nerves. Most commonly, ulnar nerve gets involved, and even all the other nerves are also not spared. One by one, all the other nerves will be involved. And if it is not paid attention at the early stage, there can be irreversible nerve damage. But if it is detected at early stage and treated little early with proper therapies, it can be reversed. That's why it is known as reversal time. So because of the peroneal nerve involvement, you can see even foot drop here in the patients, and even eye damage also can be seen in lepra-1 type reaction. Then how do you manage this type 1 lepra reaction? So because it is delayed hypersensitivity manifestations, so we can go ahead with prednisolone 40 to 60 milligrams per day for 3 months. But to prevent irreparable nerve damage, we have to detect the case very early and treat the case also very early. That is very, very important. Then along with that, clofazimine 200 to 300 milligrams per day need to be given. And thalidomide is ineffective here. So why it is ineffective, that you will come to know when we discuss something about type 2 lepra reaction. Then type 2 lepra reaction. It is like we have already discussed, it is a variety of erythema nodosum leproticum. Erythematous patches or nodules can be seen. So it is most commonly seen with lepromatous leprosy, coincides with the treatment or even intercurrent infection. So here the patient presents a kind of similar to that of Jarisch-Herxheimer reaction or even Arthus type of reaction that we generally come across, like in case of syphilis, when we keep the patient suffering from syphilis on penicillin, the same side, same kind of manifestations that we come across. So here, what is exactly the patient is presenting to us? So raised tender intracutaneous nodules can be seen, and this is because of uh, due to release of antigen from killed bacilli. And these nodules are formed because of the complexes formation between antigens and antibodies. That's how the nodules are formed. This is seen in lepromatous leprosy, and wherein you can have like cell-mediated immunity is very low, very minimal. Then, apart from that, crops of painful erythematous papules, malaise, fever, neuritis, lymphadenitis, uveitis, orchitis, and glomerulonephritis, all these things can be seen, and the patient also can present anemia, leukocytosis, and hepatic enzymes. They may get shooted up like aminotransferase levels. And if it is not paid attention immediately at the early stage, the patient even may die. Now, this is a very fatal complication with therapy. Then how do you manage this type 2 lepra reaction? If it is very mild, in the beginning stages, it can be managed well with just simple antibiotics. But if it is going further into severity, then you have to use the same like prednisolone, like that of the type 1 reactions, 40 to 60 mg per day, only for 2 weeks. Then clofazimine can be given 300 mg at HS means horasamne, that is at night time. Why do we use clofazimine here in type 2 lepra reaction? Because it has got leprostatic action and anti-inflammatory property also. Why we are not using rifampicin here? Because we have already discussed that nodules are formed because of the release of antigen from the bacilli. So rifampicin, if it kills more number of bacilli, it can release more number of antigens, and then there is more possibility of more number of nodular formation. Because clofazimine is leprostatic agent, along with that we have anti-inflammatory property, we prefer clofazimine here specifically in case of type 2 lepra reaction. Then apart from that, thalidomide 100 to 300 milligrams at night time is given. Later on it can get slowly reduced to the dose like 50 to 200 milligrams, something like that. So this thalidomide is not used in type 1 lepra reaction. Because thalidomide main mechanism of action here is reduction of tumor necrosis factor alpha levels and immunoglobulin M synthesis, slowing inflammatory reaction. So this inflammatory reaction, TNF alpha levels shooting up, all these are more in case of type 2 lepra reaction. So we don't even need that in case of type 1 lepra reaction. Then lepra reactions. So here reversal reactions, these lesions look like a flare up of the disease as such, broad lesions. Then erythema nodosum leprosum, here you can see multiple nodule formation on the skin of the patient. Then Lusio's phenomenon. We have two more other phenomenons also. We are not going to discuss about it. We are just going to discuss about Lucio phenomenon. What is it? Unusual reaction seen exclusively in patients from the Caribbean and Mexico having diffuse lepromatous form of lepromatous leprosy were left untreated. So lepromatous leprosy, if it is not treated, then it ends up in Lucius phenomenon, diffuse forms of lesions. So the patient develops recurrent crops of large, sharply marginated ulcerative lesions, especially on the lower extremities. So it becomes like a generalized picture. And it could be fatal if it is not treated, because it is lepromatous leprosy. It is untreated. So it can give a fatal picture and the patient may even die because of secondary infection and septicemia, etc., etc. So how you are going to manage here? So glucocorticoids and thalidomide at this advanced stage become ineffective. So only thing that you can try to think about is in severe cases, exchange transfusion is very useful. And apart from that, other supportive therapy like optimal wound care, therapy for bacteremia with the heavy dose of antibiotics. And of course, because of that, ulcers tend to be chronic and heal poorly. So this point also we need to pay attention while giving heavy dose bacterial therapy, antibacterial therapy. Then preparations and dosage. Dapsone is available in the form of tablets and injections. Tablets are available as 50 to 100 milligrams tablets, and we usually administer Dapsone 100 milligrams daily. And Dapsone injections are available as 20% weight by volume suspension in Arachidicil. And the dose to be given is 0.2 ml intramuscular injection weekly, gradually increased to maximum 0.8 ml weekly. Then indications. So where do we use this Dapsone apart from leprosy? In case of leprosy, even in tuberculoid leprosy, which is a less severe variety, we use Dapsone along with rifampicin, another drug, another anti-leprotic drug. And lepromatous leprosy, we use Dapsone along with rifampicin and clofazimine. Then it is also used in the management of chloroquine-resistant falciparum malaria, but not as monotherapy, but along with pyrimethamine. Then it is also used in other conditions like pneumocystis pneumonia in AIDS patients and dermatitis herpetiformis and prophylaxis of toxoplasmosis. Then contraindications. We have seen the ADR already. So it produces hemolytic anemia and hypersensitivity manifestations. So obviously the contraindications are severe anemia, G6PD deficiency, and patients with hypersensitivity reactions. Then coming to the other anti-leprotic drug, that is rifampicin. It is bactericidal, and the dose to be given is once a month dosage. Main mechanism of action of this molecule is it inhibits bacterial DNA-dependent RNA synthesis. So you can just remember like R for rifampicin, R for RNA. So inhibits bacterial DNA-dependent RNA synthesis by inhibiting bacterial DNA-dependent RNA polymerase. Okay. Then coming to the pharmacokinetics, it is absorbed orally, widely distributed, including to CSF. But brain is spared from leprosy, so we don't mind whether it enters into the CSF or not. Then it gets excreted through bile, and the main process of metabolism is deacetylation, and deacetylated products get excreted through urine, sweat, and tears, making them harmless orange reddish colored secretions. R for reddish, it is not pure red, orange red discoloration. R for RNA regarding the mechanism of action, and here orange reddish discoloration of the secretions you can think about. Then adverse drug reactions, GIT, it affects producing manifestations like nausea, vomiting, epigastric distress, and also hepatitis, and flu-like symptoms as an immune-mediated effect, and also thrombocytopenia. Where is it used and where is it not used? Indications apart from tuberculosis and leprosy. This molecule is also used in the management of brucellosis and methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infections. But it is contraindicated in lepra reactions that we have discussed already, why it is contraindicated. And also hepatic failure, because the drug itself produces hepatitis. And also renal failure and pregnancy. Pregnancy, even though it is discussed as kept under the contraindication, it is not an absolute contraindication, it is a relative contraindication. We'll discuss about it, how we manage the leprosy case in pregnant ladies. Then comes clofazimine. It is a red-purple phenazine dye with anti-leprotic and anti-inflammatory property. Okay, anti-leprotic and anti-inflammatory property. This property we have used in the management of lepra reactions that we have discussed already. It is used in combination with dapsone and rifampicin in multi-drug therapy of leprosy. And main mechanism of action is it interferes with the DNA template function of Mycobacterium leprae and thus inhibits bacterial proliferation. So DNA template function is inhibited, so there is no possibility of multiplication of the leprosy bacilli. Bacterial proliferation is as such inhibited further. Pharmacokinetics. It is orally active, accumulates in macrophages and gets deposited in subcutaneous fat. This is a specific characteristic feature with clofazimine molecule as needle-shaped crystals. So you can better remember this with like clofazimine stands for C and crystal stand for C. C for crystals, clofazimine for crystals. And there is poor entry into CSF. And apart from that, long half-life of 70 days is seen with this molecule, because of which we can expect even intermittent therapy also, because the plasma plateau phase will be maintained. Then adverse drug reactions, skin. So with this molecule, we will come across reddish black discoloration of the skin. Whereas earlier with rifampicin, orange red discoloration of secretions we have discussed. Here the skin will be turning out into reddish black. Apart from that, discoloration of hair and body secretions also can be seen. Then dryness of skin and itching, acneiform eruptions and phototoxicity also can be seen with this molecule. Apart from that, there is a profound effect on the gastrointestinal tract with this molecule, which gives rise to early syndrome and late syndrome. In case of early syndrome, the symptoms will be very minimal, like nausea, anorexia, weight loss, mild abdominal pain, enteritis with intermittent loose stools, diarrhea kind of thing. But in late syndrome, the deposition of clofazimine crystals will be seen in the intestinal submucosa, causing intense agonizing abdominal pain. This needs to be kept in mind while administering the patient this molecule. Then indications and contraindications. Indications, of course, MDT of leprosy. The dose to be given is 50 to 100 mg per day orally. Then lepra reactions also we have discussed that we use this molecule. And then apart from that, MAC infections. Then contraindications, patients with hypersensitivity, hepatic failure, renal failure, and as usual, pregnancy. Then another group of molecules, it is like second line drugs. So till now we have discussed first line drugs. Now it is second line drugs. Ethionamide. Expensive and more toxic than dapsone, but faster bactericidal action than dapsone. So prothionamide molecule is having similar kind of properties. These are used in most commonly alternative regimens sometimes, no, not even alternative regimens. These are used when the first line drugs that are used in the management of leprosy are not that effective, or there is a chance of more of hypersensitivity reactions, then we can think of combining these molecules along with the first line drugs with various permutations and combinations. Then ofloxacin, that is bactericidal, and it is used in rifampicin sensitive patients in alternative regimens. Mechanism of action is just like that of the fluoroquinolones, inhibition of bacterial DNA gyrase. Then advantages, shortens the duration of treatment. It is similar to that of the MDT, multi-drug therapy, for any disease indeed. Reduces the chances of drug resistance. Then minocycline, it is because of high lipophilicity, this tetracycline penetrates into Mycobacterium leprae. The main mechanism of action is because it belongs to the tetracycline group of compounds. So protein synthesis inhibition is the main mechanism of action, but binding here to 30S and 50S ribosomal subunits of bacteria. And the main complaint that you can come across with this molecule is vertigo, or that too long-term use. And it is also used in alternative regimens, that is 100 milligrams OD. Then clarithromycin. This is the only macrolide that is used in the management of leprosy, which has synergistic action along with minocycline. It is used in alternative regimens. Then dose to be given is 500 mg OD. Then the main ADR, whatever we have discussed till now, that is dapsone, D for dermatological manifestations. You can remember the mnemonic like that. Occasional cutaneous eruptions. Rifampicin, R for red. That is not bright red, orange reddish. Reddish urine, sweat and tears. Secretions, not the skin. Clofazimine, brownish black discoloration of skin here. So these are the common questions that will be asked in your Viva-OC. Then we will now land upon into the pharmacotherapy of leprosy after discussing about all the pharmacology of all the anti-leprotic drugs, how you are going to manage a case of leprosy whenever you come across a case. Let us see. So before starting the treatment proper, you have to keep certain aims in your mind whenever you come across a case. So what are the aims of therapy? Number one is to achieve clinical cure. Number two, bacteriological cure. Number three, to treat physical deformities resulting from either nerve damage or tissue damage. And number four, paying attention to the psychosocial aspect of the patient. So mere prescription of the drugs will not complete our treatment. So we need to look after the physical deformities and psychosocial aspect of the patient also by counseling them and by giving them encourage to live in this society, because the leprosy is a disease where you can come across social stigma. So that is more important. Being doctors, we have to keep that point in mind. Then origin of MDT. So we have till now discussed so many anti-leprotic drugs. And I have told you already that dapsone has been used as monotherapy, from which again they have come across the dapsone monotherapy resistant varieties also. Then multi-drug therapy, how the origin has been taken place. Let us see. In 1941, Promin, this is the history which makes you feel interest towards the pharmacology. In 1941, Promin, that is sodium glucose sulfone, which is a prodrug of dapsone, it got introduced. But injection of that particular molecule was very painful. So it could not become, that molecule could not become successful. Then in 1950, dapsone molecule got introduced. But dapsone monotherapy resistance also got developed in 1964. Because of which there was the initiation of pathway towards the multi-drug therapy in 1981, where the World Health Organization has recommended multi-drug therapy globally. Okay. Then what is this multi-drug therapy? In the absence of effective primary prevention by a leprosy vaccine, because we don't have leprosy vaccine like that of the tuberculosis vaccine. So when there is no vaccine, so there is no primary prevention. So what to do? Leprosy control is based on effective multi-drug chemotherapy. That is what is known as secondary prevention. Okay. So what are the various objectives of multi-drug therapy? So as such, similar to that of any other disease wherein we can put the patient on multi-drug therapy, the same objective is only to interrupt transmission of infection, to reduce total duration of therapy, to prevent drug resistance and to prevent relapse and improve patient compliance, because all the drugs together in one sheet that we are going to give to the patient, compliance can be usually better. Then here we can see first line drugs, that is dapsone, rifampicin, clofazimine, ethionamide and prothionamide. So this is ethionamide and prothionamide come under first line drugs only, not second line drugs. Then second line drugs means ofloxacin, moxifloxacin, minocycline and clarithromycin. So now we can have permutations and combinations of these drugs depending upon the patient's response. Basically, we use first line drugs only for MDT. Multi-drug therapy of leprosy. So here we have already discussed in introduction, we consider WHO classification of leprosy and diagnose a case of leprosy, whether it is multibacillary or paucibacillary. Then only we treat the case based upon that classification. So here, how do you manage this case? Multibacillary means too many lesions, very severe form. Okay, here rifampicin can be given 600 milligrams once a month supervised. Paucibacillary, same. Then dapsone, multibacillary 100 mg daily self-administered. Paucibacillary also same. Clofazimine is administered only in multibacillary type of leprosy because it is very severe form of leprosy. 3 drugs are needed to be administered here. That is to be given in the dose of 300 mg once a month supervised, and then later on shifting to 50 mg daily self-administration. So this clofazimine administration is not needed for paucibacillary leprosy. And then how long we have to administer? Paucibacillary, because it is very less severity, we can administer just 2 drugs for 6 months, whereas here 3 drugs for 12 months. So duration is doubled, 6 months and 12 months. It is very easy to remember. Okay. Here you can see in this picture. This is the blister pack that you give to the patient directly, where you can see adult treatment. This is once a month, day 1, 2 capsules of rifampicin 300 mg into 2. This is brown color. This is rifampicin, 2 capsules of rifampicin once a month dose. Just only once the patient will take. Then 1 tablet of dapsone 100 mg. This is also once a month, only once the patient takes. So whatever are kept under on the top side, they are taken once a month. And all these tablets that are given down, they are taken daily. So what are these drugs? White is dapsone that we have already discussed. So here is the dapsone. Here also 100 mg, here also 100 mg. Daily from day 2 to day 28. So by that, he will finish off this full sheet in a month. Like that, paucibacillary leprosy, we have to treat the case for 6 months. Then coming to multibacillary leprosy. Here once a month, day 1, 2 capsules of rifampicin. This is long one is rifampicin. 300 mg, 300 mg. So total 600 mg. 3 capsules of clofazimine 100 mg into 3. 100, 100, 100. Clofazimine 300 over. And 1 tablet of dapsone 100 mg here. This is all taken once in a month on day 1. And from day 2 to day 28, all these tablets are taken. So here not 1 tablet. Because it is multibacillary leprosy, you are going to give clofazimine along with dapsone. So 1 capsule of clofazimine, it contains here it is 100 mg, here it is 50 mg. Along with 1 tablet of dapsone, that is 100 mg. This is clofazimine, brown color, white is dapsone. Okay, this is for 1 month. So full course 12 blister packs can be given because the duration of treatment is for 12 months in multibacillary leprosy. Then what are the complications of this MDT? Number 1 is adverse drug reactions that we have already discussed. And number 2, it could be lepra reactions. These are not ADR, but just body's response to that particular treatment. Then along with the treatment, you have to focus upon the deformities also. we have to manage. Because of, it could be deformities, maybe because of late diagnosis and late treatment, or it could be like advanced stage of the disease, or where you can see even leprosy reactions coming up with nerve involvement without notice by the patient, and the patient comes to you very late. So these also need noted to be paid attention. Then how are you going to manage these deformities? In a just nutshell, we are not going into the details of orthopedics and other areas of medicine. So deformities of hands and feet like claw hand, wrist drop, and foot drop can be corrected by using prosthesis, orthopedic devices including splints, and finally, if it is not responding, if it is very advanced stage, then you have to go for surgery even depending on the need. Then after discussing about the dapsone monotherapy and multi-drug therapy, we have alternative regimens also. Okay, so what are they? And when to use these alternative regimens, let us see. These alternative regimens are used in case of single skin lesion of paucibacillary leprosy. This is one indication. And number two, they are also used in case of patients with rifampicin resistance where you can't put the patient on rifampicin. Then, in case of resistance to MDR, when there is dapsone resistance, you have gone for MDR. It is not MDR, it is MDT, sorry. So when there is dapsone resistance, we have gone for MDT, multi-drug therapy. When there is multi-drug therapy resistance, then we have to depend upon these alternative regimens, apart from the single skin lesions of paucibacillary leprosy and patients with rifampicin resistance. So what are they? So this is one chart can describe everything about the alternative regimens. See, we have here intermittent ROM regimen, then 4-drug regimen, then RMMX regimen. ROM regimen, that is ROM, R for rifampicin, O for ofloxacin, M for minocycline. Very easy to remember. Rifampicin 600 mg once a month, ofloxacin 400 mg, minocycline 100 mg. So total together to be given paucibacillary leprosy 3 to 6 months, multibacillary leprosy 12 to 24 months. Then, if the patient is sensitive to rifampicin, then you can choose another regimen where you can prescribe clofazimine, that is 50 mg for 6 months. Then ofloxacin, of course, we are prescribing the same 400 mg, minocycline 100 mg, and along with that you have to add clarithromycin 500 mg. Either of these two regimens can be prescribed. Then RMMX regimen. R means rifampicin 600 mg. M means minocycline 200 mg. Here, there it was 100, here it was 200 mg. Then MX means moxifloxacin, that is 400 mg. So paucibacillary leprosy 6 doses, multibacillary leprosy it has to be given for 12 doses. And if the patient is little bit hypersensitive to rifampicin, then you have to give clofazimine 50 mg. Then ofloxacin 400 mg in place of moxifloxacin, or minocycline can be given 100 mg total together for a period of 18 months. Then 4-drug regimen, like that of here in the earlier case, rifampicin can be given 600 mg. Then in place of ofloxacin 400 mg, here we are giving parfloxacin 200 mg, minocycline 100 mg same. So this is a kind of ROM regimen along with clarithromycin. Clarithromycin 500 mg has to be added here. Okay, so don't get confused with all sorts of regimens. You can just remember intermittent ROM regimen, 4-drug regimen. These two are little similar. And then RMMX regimen. That is enough for you. Okay. These are alternative regimens. Then what are the novel drugs that are used in the management of leprosy? We have like anzomycins, like rifabutin and rifapentin, and dihydrofolate reductase inhibitors like new drugs, that is brodimoprin or K130, and fusidic acid, and even beta-lactamase resistant antibiotics. Research is still going on these molecules. Then steps to control, apart from the therapy, how to control the disease globally, at least in India. The preventive measures, that is like early detection and treatment of cases, health education and counseling, because the patient may not will to come for the treatment. He may be afraid of. Then control of cases and contacts. Then prevention of complications. We have to see that there is no interruption of the continued treatment. So then we can obviously prevent the complications. We have to show for every case of leprosy that we come across, we have to show this picture to the patient. See, this is before treatment and this is after treatment. And we have to counsel the patient that if you take the drugs properly without any interruption, you can become absolutely normal like this. And then you can lead a happy life. If you show this picture, definitely they will take the drugs without any hesitation. You can get very good patient compliance from the patient. Then leprosy and pregnancy. How are you going to manage this? When a mother suffers from leprosy, there is obviously a possibility of IUG or intrauterine growth retardation. And there is no option. We have to keep the patient on anti-lepratic drugs, especially multi-drug therapy. So here, dapsone, whenever you prescribe, it may induce exfoliative dermatitis. And clofazimine, if you induce, it may give rise to brownish discoloration of the skin. Then, apart from these side effects that you come across in even pregnant ladies, we have to think about the benefits versus risk that the molecules are giving to us. So, better we prescribe these drugs to the patient. They are like not absolutely contraindicated, but relatively contraindicated. But thalidomide is absolutely contraindicated. So what are the safe drugs that can be administered? Means dapsone, rifampicin, clofazimine, and even corticosteroids whenever there is the flare-up of the lepra reactions. But the contraindicated drugs are the drugs which belong to the second line of drugs, mainly quinolones, which belong to fluoroquinolones, and minocycline, which belongs to the tetracycline group of drugs. So we know already fluoroquinolones and tetracyclines are absolutely contraindicated in pregnancy. So these are also. And apart from that, thalidomide, which is also a powerful teratogenic drug, it is also absolutely contraindicated in pregnancy. Then, leprosy management in case of children, MDT regimen for children who are from 10 to 14 years age group. The dose varies if the child is little less than even 10 years. So we are just discussing about just up to the level of 10 to 15 years. So paucibacillary leprosy and multibacillary leprosy. So in case of paucibacillary leprosy, dapsone 50 mg, it is like half of the dose that we are giving. 100 mg we used to give in adults, here 50 mg daily self-administered. Then rifampicin 450 mg, there it was 600 mg. So here 450 mg. Once monthly under supervision. Then multibacillary leprosy. Here dapsone 50 mg daily self-administered, rifampicin 450 mg once monthly under supervision. Apart from that, we are adding the third drug, that is clofazimine 150 mg. There it was 300 mg. Once monthly under supervision, and later on 50 mg self-administration. It's a little easy to remember, but if you add this, don't become panic that pediatric prescription also can be remembered during the final exam. It is very easy, and if you write it in your final exam, you'll get good marks. Here you can see the same thing here. Paucibacillary treatment once a month, day 1, 2 capsules of rifampicin, that is 150 mg and 150 mg. Then no, this is 300 mg plus 150 mg, 450 mg. That's what we have discussed in the earlier slide. So 300 plus 150, that is 450 mg. Then this is 1 tablet of dapsone 50 mg, half of the adult dose. Then every day we have to give 1 tablet of dapsone 50 mg. So 6 blister packs for 6 months for paucibacillary. Then multibacillary leprosy, once a month, day 1, 2 capsules of rifampicin, that is 300 plus 150, 450 total. Then 1 tablet of dapsone, that we know 50 mg. Then clofazimine is 50 mg, 3 tablets. This is 3 small brown tablets. So this capsule, each capsule consisting of clofazimine 50 mg. So total 150 mg, half of the adult dose. And all these here, we are giving 2 drugs. Clofazimine is also added for multibacillary leprosy. So 1 tablet of dapsone, this is white tablet, this is 50 mg, and this is capsule. That is clofazimine 50 mg daily. Got it? Then immunoprophylaxis. We have discussed about all the chemotherapy and the various drugs that are used, multi-drug therapy. And if even multi-drug therapy resistance happens, how you have to go for alternative drug regimens also. Now comes the prophylaxis of leprosy, especially immunoprophylaxis. So in 2016, MIP vaccine, that is Mycobacteria Indicus prani vaccine, that was introduced by National Leprosy Eradication Program in 2016. And it could show immunoprophylactic as well as immunotherapeutic results. Okay, it was developed by in vitro studies in the foot pads of mice. But even that was not giving even 100% protection rate. So till date, there is no effective vaccine against leprosy, one single effective vaccine which can give 100% protection for the disease leprosy. And other trials were like BCG vaccine that was used for Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So that is giving only 34.1% protection. And BCG vaccine plus killed Mycobacterium leprae, when both added together, it was giving a little bit better protection, that is 64%. And ICRC, that is in 1958, they have also developed one vaccine that is like International Cancer Research Center. So that was also giving like, they have taken the leprosy bacilli and attenuated kind of thing, and they have studied whether it is working or not in foot pads of mice and even armadillo. So that was even giving say 65.5% protection only. So none of the vaccine is giving 100% protection, but still the research is going on. So why they are not able to develop a vaccine like that of the tuberculosis? If we think about it, let us see. The challenges in the therapy of leprosy are, number one is poor compliance. Number two is emergence of resistant strains and also the persisters that we have discussed. Apart from this, what are the impediments to research to develop a vaccine which can produce 100% efficacy in leprosy management, or I mean in leprosy prophylaxis? So here there is one detailed description regarding this. So the Mycobacterium leprae genome has undergone reductive evolution and has radically downsized its genome. As a result, Mycobacterium leprae cannot produce ATP and from NADH or utilize acetate or galactose as carbon sources. Moreover, it has lost the anaerobic electron transfer system. It has lost the anaerobic electron transfer system. So what is the meaning of this entire statement? It cannot survive under hypoxic conditions. That means genome has got lost itself. So it cannot survive anymore if you bring the bacilli out of the body. So that is one reason. There are various reasons. Another reason is it has long doubling time of 14 days. And another reason is it is an obligate intracellular pathogen where we can come across even persister stage. That is for therapeutic action I'm speaking about. Then it multiplies very slowly because the incubation period is from 2 to 40 years, very long. When to do the research, it is not an easy job. Even if we take the average, it is 3 to 5 years, which is very long period. As a result, Mycobacterium leprae is difficult to culture on synthetic media effectively. Of course, they have done the studies which I have discussed in the immunoprophylaxis slide. They have tried doing the study, but they were not completely successful with bringing out 100% efficacy because of these reasons only. Mycobacterium leprae is difficult to culture on synthetic media, an impediment to basic research on the disease. This is the main reason. Then, the targeting research area, what is it? Attempts to identify new drugs that can stop the neural damage caused by the bacteria, because the patients can be comfortable if you prevent the permanent neural damage to them. How to do it? Bacteria needs to recognize certain type glycoprotein on the cell surface to bind with and subsequently enter the cell. So these glycoproteins will be present on the cellular surface, to which the bacteria, Mycobacterium leprae, can cling onto, and then with the help of the glycoprotein can enter into the cell. So if we can develop the drug molecules which can inhibit these glycoproteins, which act as carrier molecules for that particular bacillus, then the entry of bacillus into the cell can be inhibited totally, and we can even stop the neural damage also. This is one target area of research. So with this, I have finished entire disease, starting from the introduction till the management, novel drugs, and then alternative regimens, and even the immunoprophylaxis also. Now it is the questionnaire time. So I have framed a few questions, common questions and little reasoning type of questions, and little type of a kind of I can say memory based questions. So after hearing to this lecture completely, if you don't go back to the slides again, and if you are able to answer at least 50% of these questions, then I will think that my effort has become successful. Okay, try to answer these questions. If you can't get the answers for these questions, because I have given the questions in this simple form, and one multiple choice questionnaire and one case study also I have given. If you don't get the answers, you feel free liberty to contact me on phone at any time. Okay. So let us see the questions. What are the best experimental animal models of leprosy? Easy question. What is the pre-modern treatment for leprosy, and what are the novel drugs used in leprosy? Comparison. What are the impediments and challenges in leprosy management? Because pharmacology means it is not just only drugs. We need to know all these areas also in total. Why rifampicin is not given in the management of lepra reactions, which we have discussed already. How do you treat leprosy in pregnant ladies? How do you treat leprosy in children of 10 to 14 years age? How do you treat paucibacillary leprosy? How do you treat multibacillary leprosy? What are the alternative regimens used in leprosy management? Various management. These are the only possible questions that they will ask you in your final exam, whether it is the essay question or short question or reasoning type of 2 marks question. Even for Viva OC also. And what are the alternative regimens used in leprosy management, and what is immunoprophylaxis of leprosy on the latest vaccines that are under trial? And how do you manage type 1 lepra reactions? How do you manage type 2 lepra reactions? Then MCQ. Which of the following statement is correct regarding clofazimine in the treatment of leprosy? Clofazimine should not be used in patients with a deficiency of G6PD. Peripheral neuropathy is one of the most common adverse effects seen with the drug. Clofazimine may cause skin discoloration over time. The risk of ENL is increased in patients given clofazimine. You have to choose one answer for this. Then case study. You need to pay attention to this. A 50-year-old male attends the hospital OPD with multiple diffuse-derived nodules over the face and arms for the past 1 month. The skin over the lesions is reddish and glossy. Sensation over face and arms is diminished, and the ulna is thickened. He informs that 6 years back he had suffered from similar lesions and had taken regular medication for the same for 1 year and was declared cured. The treatment records revealed that he was given the standard multi-drug therapy with rifampicin, clofazimine, and dapsone, and had successfully completed the 1-year course. Clear. The skin smear is positive for Mycobacterium leprae. So, what could be the cause of relapse of leprosy in this case? What treatment should be prescribed? You need to think little bit to get answer for this question. Okay. And finally, Mother Teresa says that the biggest disease today is not leprosy or tuberculosis, but rather the feeling of being unwanted, uncared for, and deserted by everybody. So let us eliminate leprosy altogether from our country. And to do that, we need to detect all patients and cure them with multi-drug therapy. Thank you. Thank you, one and all.